What if the thing slowly destroying your life is also the thing that everyone's telling you is smart? Saving time, taking shortcuts, doing whatever works in life. Sounds reasonable on the surface. But what if the pursuit of expedience, doing whatever's fastest right now, is quietly killing something much deeper inside of you? Your discipline, your character, your happiness, and eventually, your soul. Because every time you choose expedience over principle, every time you make that trade for comfort right now instead of pushing things off in the long term, you sacrifice who you could have become. In today's video, I want to talk about why expedience is the death of the soul, why rushing through life quietly makes people miserable, and why the people who tend to slow down in their decision-making often produce better results than those who rush through. But first, I need to talk about something that most people overlook. The smallest decisions in your life and how they can compound on themselves to eventually lead to you being the person you are today. Most people believe the big moments define them, graduations, their career choices, major life milestones, but that's not really how character is actually built. Character is built over small daily decisions repeated 1,000 times that compound on themselves to build the foundations of who you are as a person. The moment you decide whether to tell the truth or lie because it's easier, do the work or procrastinate, accept responsibility or blame someone else. Each time you make these decisions, something subtle happens to your character. You're teaching yourself a rule. That rule becomes, do what is easiest, do what works right now, instead of do what's meaningful, do what's right. You just tell yourself to do what's easiest in the moment. And over time, that rule spreads into every aspect of your character. No one ever wakes up planning to become a dishonest or weak person. It happens gradually over time. One small shortcut, one small decision at a time, a small lie, cutting a corner, avoiding a difficult task. Each one on its own seems harmless enough, but together, they reshape the foundations of your identity. Now let's talk about something that all of these things generally have in common: expedience and rushing. Most people live their lives in a constant state of hurry. They rush through meals, they rush through conversations, they rush through work. They're always trying to get to the next thing. But here's something strange that psychologists have discovered. The more people rush through life, the less they actually enjoy it. When you're constantly rushing, when you're constantly checking that clock, when you're constantly in a hurry, your brain is locked in a stress state. Your attention span narrows, your patience disappears. Your ability to appreciate the small things in life fades. You stop experiencing things and you start skimming through them. Here's an example. Think about the last time you were rushed for something. Maybe you were late to work. Maybe someone was pressuring you. What happened? You got careless and you made more mistakes. You felt irritated, and you probably didn't deliver your best quality of work. And most importantly, you definitely didn't enjoy what you were doing. Here's the thing that most people tend to miss. When you slow down, when you take your time, you often get better results. Great craftsmen throughout history have known this. Great artists have known this. Great thinkers have known this. Rushing leads to sloppy, inaccurate work. Taking your time allows you to notice things. It allows you to pick up on the small details of what you're doing. You see the mistakes earlier. You're thinking more clearly. You generally make better decisions. This is why some of the most successful people in history have had an unusual habit. That habit is that they protected long periods of slow thinking. Because deep, meaningful work cannot and should not be rushed. Insight cannot be rushed. Mastery of something cannot be rushed. When your life becomes optimized for speed and efficiency, and you're constantly rushing to get to that next thing, something unusual begins to happen to you. Everything in your life will start to feel more meaningless, more empty. Meals become fuel instead of an experience. Conversations become more transactional. Work becomes something that you're rushing through instead of something you're building pride in. Life becomes a series of checklists. And when your life becomes a checklist, you'll constantly be chasing that next thing, that next promotion, that next purchase, that next distraction from the things that truly matter and the things that are right in front of you. And over time, you'll find that satisfaction, true satisfaction, never really arrives for you. Because to be truly satisfied in life requires something that most people in this state of mind have lost: attention span. And attention only truly exists for something when you slow down and give all of your focus onto one thing completely. As you progress through life and pursue the things that are important to you, you'll find that any investment in your life, whether that's an investment in a new skill or a financial investment or simply an investment in a relationship, often requires a combination of your money, your energy, your attention, and your time to truly make that a worthwhile investment. So, knowing that, here's the trap. Sometimes taking shortcuts can actually work for you. Sometimes you can cheat your way through a test or school and get that reward at the end of it. Sometimes cutting corners can work. It can allow you to manipulate situations, and sometimes you will find success from that. From the outside looking in, that can look a lot like winning. But internally, something much more nefarious is happening to you. It makes you begin to distrust others, because you know on the inside that you yourself are becoming untrustworthy. Your relationships become more shallow. Your success begins to feel more hollow, because deep down, you know that what you're doing is dishonest. You don't build yourself into something capable. You build yourself into something manipulative. You just got good at avoiding difficulty. Eventually, life presents you with a problem that cannot be shortcutted, and you will expose yourself as someone who has not built a true level of capacity. So now we're confronted with the idea of an individual soul. And not in a mystical or religious sense, but in a psychological sense. Your soul is the part of us that wants true meaning, wants real growth, wants responsibility, and above all craves truth. And meaning almost always requires effort and attention on the part of an individual. Whether it's raising your children, building a successful business, learning a craft, telling the truth when it's costly, standing by your principles, none of these things can be rushed. None of these things are a product of expedience. They take time. And strangely enough, that time is exactly what makes them meaningful. At the end of the day, all of us only have so much free time. We only have so much attention that we can devote to any one particular thing. So making the conscious choice to spend your finite time on something is something that should be taken seriously and something that should be a meaningful, worthwhile decision in your life, instead of freely wasting your time on things that don't matter, that devoid you of purpose, that retract from your soul and your purpose in life. It's often said that the most valuable resource any one person has is their time and their health, and I believe this to be very true. In the modern world that we live in, everything is optimized for expediency. Everything is built for speed, fast food, on-demand entertainment, instant access to information. And at first, on the surface, this can seem like progress. But on a spiritual level, humans weren't built for constant convenience. We were built for challenge and struggle and having to put effort into things that then reward us with long-term meaning. When life becomes too easy, as a byproduct, people don't tend to become happier. They tend to become restless and anxious and disconnected from the environment and the communities around them, because comfort without meaning becomes insanity. It becomes unbearable. It becomes devoid of the very thing that these technologies and gratifications were supposed to enhance. However, there is some good news to all of this. There is power in deliberate slowness. Deliberate slowness, taking your time, setting enough time aside to avoid the anxiety of being rushed, is the antidote to modern society and its expedience. Deliberate slowness. Now, do not confuse deliberate slowness with laziness. This doesn't mean laziness. What this means is intentional attention. What it means is prior preparation. It means making sure that you have enough time to set aside for something to where you can devote yourself fully without worrying about watching the clock, without worrying about how much time you're spending on it because you know that you have enough. Take time with your work. Take time with your conversations. Take time to think before acting, to think before responding. Take time to build the things in your life that matter. The strange thing is that when people stop rushing and they start becoming deliberate, they often become calmer, more thoughtful, more effective in their own lives. The end result of this is they produce better work, they build more meaningful relationships, and they start enjoying their life again. Because life was never meant to be something you sprint through. Life is not a race, it's a marathon. As an example, consider the following story. There's an old tale about two carpenters who were hired to build houses in the same town. The first carpenter worked quickly. He rushed through the job. He used cheaper materials where no one would notice. He skipped small details because they took too long. And from the outside, his house looked fine. Things went up fast. He made money quickly, and he moved on to the next project. The second carpenter worked differently. He took his time. He measured things twice and cut once. He fixed mistakes instead of covering them up. He worked slower and more deliberately, and sometimes people even thought that he was inefficient because of this. But years later, something interesting happened to the second carpenter. The houses built by the first carpenter started to show cracks, started to show flaws in the original design. Doors didn't close properly. Foundations shifted. Things slowly fell apart. But the houses built by the second carpenter remained strong, still standing years later exactly the way they were meant to. Because the second carpenter wasn't just building houses, he was building something that could last. And in many ways, your life works the same way. Every rush shortcut is like building with weak materials. You might not notice the damage to your life immediately, but over time, the cracks in the foundation will show. Taking your time, doing things properly, holding on to principles when it's inconvenient, these are the foundations of a successful life. And in the end, that's the real choice that each of us are confronted with on a daily basis. You can build your life quickly, you can take shortcuts, or you can take your time and you can build it well. One creates comfort in the moment, the other creates comfort over a lifetime. It's up to you to decide which is more valuable. A life that can actually hold the weight of reality, or a life that gives you immediate gratification. At the end of the day, your life is not going to be defined by one single decision. It's going to be defined by thousands of seemingly small and insignificant choices. Tiny moments that most people barely even notice throughout their day. Moments when no one is watching. Moments when the choices you make seem unimportant. Do you rush, or do you take the time to do things properly? Do you cut corners, or do you hold yourself to a standard? Do you tell the convenient lie, or the difficult truth? Each one of these choices, while small on their own, matters, and they accumulate into a larger experience. And slowly, quietly, they're going to shape the kind of person that you become. Because every time you choose expedience, every time you choose to cut that corner or the easy way out, you are training yourself subconsciously to escape difficulty. Every time you choose principle, every time you choose to do things the right way, you're training yourself to face those difficult decisions. And facing difficulty is where meaning lives, not in comfort, not in speed, but in the slow, deliberate process of becoming something more, becoming a capable, hardened individual, someone who can carry the weight of responsibility, someone who can build things that last, and someone who can look at their own life in the end and know that it wasn't built on shortcuts or deceit. Most of the problems people face today aren't caused by a lack of intelligence. They're caused by something far simpler. We move too fast to think. We rush from one distraction to the next, from one obligation to another, rarely stopping long enough to examine the direction our life is heading. Reflection changes everything. Sometimes all it truly takes is slowing down just long enough to ask yourself a few honest questions. What kind of person am I becoming? What kind of life am I building for myself? And is the speed I'm moving actually taking me somewhere worth going? Because the most valuable things in life were never meant to be rushed through. Mastery of something takes years. Building character takes struggle. Great relationships take patience. And wisdom only arrives with time and diligence. So take your time in life. Build your life carefully. Because the things worth having are almost always things that cannot be rushed through. If this video made you pause and reflect on your life, even for a moment, and think differently about how you're living today, then please consider subscribing for more videos, and please consider giving me a like as it greatly helps the channel. That's my rant, and thanks for watching.